On the day I married Pei Ying in place of my legitimate elder sister, he handed me a bundle of counting rods and said coldly, "The Pei family doesn't support idlers. If you want to stay here, pay for your food and expenses with counting rods." I was timid and cautious, carefully managing household affairs for him, taking care of everything inside and out, and only then was I allowed to stay. It wasn't until my legitimate sister's birthday, when he lavishly spent a fortune on gifts for her, that I suddenly realized. So the Pei family wasn't poor at all, and he wasn't a stingy person either. He was just petty with me alone. I picked up my bundle and left a divorce letter. Just then, a maid came to urge me, saying the counting rods for next month's lodging hadn't been paid yet. Without looking back, I said, "Tell your master that the Pei family is too expensive. Ju is going to stay somewhere else." The summer sun blazed, cicadas chirped incessantly, water droplets fell from under the eaves, making pat-pat sounds as they hit the ground. I held up a green bamboo umbrella, my bundle containing Mother's urn, stepping out from the Pei family's side door, one step at a time. The gatekeeper was slouching lazily at the threshold. Seeing me, he lifted his eyelids and asked, "Does Madam need a carriage?" "It is just that the masters have all gone out to a banquet today. Only the lower grade ones are left. You can have it for half a counting rod." I shook my head and refused. I wasn't coming back anyway. What would I need a carriage for? I could faintly hear someone spit behind me and mutter, in a low voice, "Pauper." My heart remained calm. I was just carefully thinking about whether it would be better to take a boat to Fuzhou or go with a merchant caravan. Servants only act according to their master's mood. Pei Ying doesn't like me, so they treat me as a temporary guest, staying at the Pei family to freeload. Although I am not a servant, I've also seen plenty of people's attitudes. After thinking it over, I still decided to check out the trading company first. After all, Mother never took a boat while she was alive, so I am afraid she'd feel dizzy watching from heaven too. The streets of Yanjing were quite lively. Pedestrians bustled about everywhere. Even beggars dared to ask for alms at the bridge crossing. Being cautious by nature, I spent 2 copper coins to find out from them about a porcelain merchant with a good reputation who would be departing soon and happened to be passing through Fuzhou. That porcelain merchant's shop was right next to the Fanlu. Compared to the prosperity of the #1 restaurant under heaven, it wasn't that crowded. I was negotiating the price with the shopkeeper when I suddenly heard a familiar voice. "Has that kingfisher feather tiara been delivered to the Shen family?" It was Pei Ying. I looked up and saw him wearing a moon-white brocade robe, a jade pendant at his waist, his handsome face showing a trace of a smile as he leisurely walked out of the Fanlu. The attendant beside him nodded and bowed, saying, "Of course it was delivered." Miss Li Yin was very surprised. It is just that Madam was also present, and her expression didn't look too good. Do you need to explain things to her?" Another young master fanning himself shook his head. "Spending a fortune to make a beauty smile is a fine tale. So what if your wife has opinions? Brother Pei, you are not henpecked, are you?" Hearing this, Pei Ying's handsome sword, like eyebrows furrowed slightly, and even his smile faded considerably. "She eats my food and uses my things. What right does she have to have any opinions? Besides, Li Yin is her older sister. She should be more magnanimous." I stood inside the shop, frozen in place for a long while. Probably not many people remember that my legitimate sister and I share the same birthday. Even our birth times weren't much different. It is just that legitimate eldest daughter always sounds better than concubine-born eldest. With a wave of father's hand, Shen Li Yin became my nominal legitimate older sister. She was spoiled by nature, practically raised in a honeypot, while I was born with a big appetite. Even eating my fill was a luxury. Mother's health was frail. After giving birth to me, she fell out of favor and spent years confined to her sick bed. The monthly allowance all went to buying medicine. There was nothing left to bribe the kitchen staff. Mother had a gentle nature and skillful hands. Occasionally she'd sew me hair ornaments from fabric scraps. Once my legitimate sister saw them. Without a word, she snatched them from my hands. I argued with her, she wailed a few times, and father punished me by making me kneel in the courtyard. The legitimate mother said nothing, only gave me a cold glance. I vaguely sensed I had done something wrong, yet didn't know what I had done wrong. Back in the courtyard, my usually loving mother made me kneel outside for several hours. In the harsh winter cold, her voice trembling, She stroked my frozen red hands as tears soaked her clothes. Liju, remember this. Never fight with others over anything again. Mother is useless. I can't protect you. From then on, I learned to yield. But life only got harder day by day. The porridge sent from the kitchen became thinner and thinner, and even my monthly allowance was withheld by the wicked servants. Back then, the Shen and Pei families often visited each other, and after the engagement was arranged, Pei Ying would also come to pay his respects during festivals. Ansi happened upon a scene where I was in conflict with a wicked servant. Perhaps it was youthful chivalry, or perhaps just a casual gesture. In any case, that wicked servant was scolded by the young Pei Ying. I was often like a flying squirrel that couldn't stand the light, secretly watching him take my legitimate elder sister to fly kites, planting a seed called envy in my heart. But I never imagined that one day, that jade-faced young man would become my husband. At that time, the new emperor had just ascended the throne. The Pei family had backed the wrong side. Their title demoted from marquis to earl, and even the high-spirited young Master Pei fell from his horse, and injured both legs. Father had always valued reputation. He refused to break off the engagement at such a time, yet was unwilling to let my legitimate elder sister suffer, so he thought of me. It was the first time I saw a loving expression appear on that stern face, like a mask on a theatrical puppet, exaggerated and fake. He stroked his beard and sighed. Liju has grown so much, it is time for her to marry. My legitimate mother gently leaned over and patted the back of my hand, saying meaningfully, I know you are a filial girl. Surely you also want to give your aunt a better life, right? As long as you are willing to marry into the Pei family and stay there properly, your aunt's medicine expenses can be charged to the public account. I thought about it and nodded in agreement. Not long after, I wore an ill-fitting wedding dress, brought 10 sedan chairs of meager dowry, and became Pei Ying's wife. I had hoped that my future with my husband would be loving and harmonious, or at least mutually respectful. But, unexpectedly, on our wedding night, Pei Ying flew into a rage, smashing the wedding candles and wine cups, saying coldly, Ha, your Shen family is really something, pawning off a concubine's daughter on me. You've gained a good reputation and made me support a freeloader. Who would have thought such a good deal existed in this world? I bashfully lowered my head, thinking of mother, and could only shamelessly stay here. I can do anything. I won't be a freeloader. He thought for a moment, took down a bundle of counting rods from the shelf, and handed them to me, his long phoenix eyes full of mockery. Fine, the Pei family doesn't support idle people. If you want to stay here, pay for your meals and lodging with counting rods. 1 counting rod for 1 meal, 2 days of lodging. Even the fabric for the tailor to mend clothes, I had to exchange with counting rods. But the clothes I wove, and the shoes I sewed weren't worth half a rod. Only by managing the household affairs, inside and out to Pei Ying's satisfaction would he give me a bit more. But no matter how I calculated, I still couldn't get enough to eat. It made me terribly sad. In winter, when the cold numbed my hands and feet, the counting rods I had couldn't buy silver charcoal, so I asked him humbly if he could advance me a portion. Pei Ying neither agreed nor refused, only smiled and said, I've seen plenty of women like you, clearly without any backbone, yet insisting on putting on airs and keeping up appearances. After saying that, he casually wrote out a divorce letter, his tone contemptuous. If you are willing to go back home, I could even send you 100 baskets of silver charcoal. I silently put away that thin sheet of paper with Pei Ying's name on it, thinking to myself, backbone can't be eaten as medicine anyway. If I don't have it, so be it, as long as mother can recover. I endured through several winters. If mother hadn't stopped writing to tell me she was safe for so long, if I hadn't run into him at the Shen family banquet, presenting a kingfisher feather headdress bought for a fortune as a gift to my legitimate elder sister, if the pointing and whispering of everyone at the banquet hadn't been so unbearable, I probably wouldn't have developed the thought of wanting to leave. The departure time agreed upon with the porcelain merchant boss was at the Mao hour on the 2nd day. As dawn broke, a red sun rose from the riverside. There were quite a few people in the merchant caravan. The exquisite porcelain was all wrapped in soft cloth and framed within wooden racks, then loaded onto the carriages, with the remaining space left for passengers to sit. The leader of the group cracked his whip and warned, Keep your hands clean. Don't touch what you shouldn't touch, or don't blame us for being rude. Everyone responded in succession. With my purse so light, I had no choice but to work as half a cook on the road, to get half the fare waived. After getting familiar, someone even teased, "Young lady, with cooking skills this good, you'll surely snag yourself a handsome husband." The journey wasn't peaceful the whole way, but fortunately the bandits we encountered were nothing serious. Along the way we also saw a cavalry unit on the official road, charging ahead fiercely to who knows where. I saw many sights I'd never seen before, and the gloom in my chest seemed to gradually dissipate, and I thought of Pei Ying less often too. By the time we reached Fuzhou, it was already mid-September. The apricot leaves falling on my shoulders had curled edges that were starting to yellow. The leader of the porcelain caravan even gifted me a delicate little porcelain cup. Not worth much money, but worth the sentiment. I carefully placed it in my pack and cupped my hands, saying, "Wishing you a safe journey." Fuzhou was connected to the canal, a gentle water town. I inquired about the address of Mother's hometown, only to find out I'd still have to take a boat in the end. On the small covered boat was an old man, pulling and laughing as he solicited passengers. 2 copper coins, last trip of the day. I hurriedly boarded the boat, afraid of any delay. Halfway through the journey, the boat suddenly shook. The old boatman exclaimed in alarm, "There is someone below." Huh. Timid as I was, I got startled and tremblingly grabbed the edge of the boat to peer out. Sure enough, I saw a figure in the rippling water. It was a man dressed in black. His jet-black hair was tangled around his porcelain-white face, obscured in the water, so his features couldn't be seen clearly. The old boatman didn't hesitate to steer away. "Miss, don't bother with this. Who knows if he is still breathing? Getting involved will only cause you trouble." I pressed my lips together, then suddenly caught sight of the mountain-patterned armor beneath his billowing sleeves. That was the inner armor commonly worn by military officers at court. "Save him." I grabbed the man's hand and urged, "Please lend a hand, boatman. I'll pay extra." "All right. Well, that is just great. I can't go back to my hometown now." I carried the man of unknown fate on my back and rushed to the medical clinic. Fortunately, we made it in time. The doctor checked his pulse and saw the man was still clinging to half a breath of life, then quickly administered acupuncture and medicine. The doctor was advanced in years, with white hair and beard. While treating the patient's wounds, he chided, "You, young miss, how could you wait until his condition got this severe before bringing him here?" My face flushed red as I waved my hands in denial. He is not." Before I could finish my explanation, cough, cough, the man on the bed suddenly half opened his eyes, grabbed my hand and cried out, "Mother, don't abandon Huaizhen. So it is a stepmother." The physician on the side widened his eyes, imagining who knows what, shaking his head and sighing, "Moral decay. Such moral decay. Me. Damn it." I vented my frustration by fiercely scratching the palm of his hand. But I didn't notice that the man's thick lashes were trembling slightly. On the other end, the Pei residence. The usually bright mansion was now dim and gloomy. Pei Ying returned to the courtyard and called out as usual, "Shen Liju," but no one answered. Usually at this time, the woman would come over with warmed pear soup and ask if he was thirsty. Then she'd prepare his change of clothes and hover around him. Today there was only silence. Pei Ying recalled what his attendant had said and waved his hand, instructing the servants, "Go ask the gatekeeper if the madam has returned from the Shen family." Before long, the gatekeeper came to report. This servant saw the madam return once, but she left again shortly after. I don't know if it is because she didn't have enough counting chips, but she wouldn't even take the carriage. The maid in charge of accounts also said, "The madam refused to hand over next month's lodging chips, saying that the Pei residence is too expensive. She wants to live elsewhere." Pei Ying snorted coldly. This is clearly her giving me attitude. Live elsewhere. Where else can she go, the Shen family? Minister Shen may not be willing to keep her. Pei Ying was extremely displeased, feeling that Shen Liju was too petty. It was just a birthday gift. He didn't do anything wrong. Yet she actually wanted to make a fuss and leave. It was rare to see Shen Liju quarrel with him, but he had no intention of backing down either. Pei Ying thought with a gloomy face. It would be best if she got rejected at the Shen family's door. Then Shen Liju would understand that he, her husband, was the one who treated her best. Because he was angry, he didn't notice that there was still a letter on the vanity table. His leg injury hadn't healed for long, and by nightfall it started to ache faintly again. Usually with Shen Liju helping him massage and change the medicine, he didn't feel it was this uncomfortable. now touching the empty space beside him. Pei Ying also felt an emptiness in his heart, unable to adapt to anything. 2 more days passed. Early in the morning he softened his tone and specially instructed his attendant. Take a carriage and wait at the Shen family's door to pick her up. After thinking, he added, don't calculate the fare this time. But he never expected that once Shen Lizhu left, she never came back. I stayed in Fuzhou for over a month before Lu Huaizhen's injuries gradually improved. The already meager silver coins were running even lower. I pounded and ground the medicine powder, huffing indignantly. Young Master Lu, Lord Lu, in the future, you must repay me 10 times the medicine cost. All right, Aju. The young man's eyes and brows carried a smile, clear and refreshing like a breeze. Look at me. Where do I have even half a copper coin? I only have this useless body of bones. I wonder if you'll take it. This guy's got skin thicker than a wall. Gave his name, told his age, but wouldn't mention a thing about his background or origins. After his wounds healed, he started using a wooden stick to write weird symbols and numbers on the ground, saying they were some kind of formulas. I couldn't be bothered to dig into it, just waiting for him to pay off the medicine costs. Then I'll take Mother back to our hometown for burial. In my spare time, I like weaving little things out of grass, or making small mechanisms with wood. The mechanisms are delicate and useful, all taught to me by my skillful mother. Lu Huaizhen would be amazed every single time, saying with inexplicable enthusiasm, Aju, you are clearly a genius. If this were the future, you could probably even be an inventor. What is an inventor? Don't really get it. I stood there dazed for a moment, feeling my heart sweet like I'd eaten glutinous rice cake. So this is how it feels to be praised. It is actually quite delightful, when they're really just some trivial little things. Lu Huaizhen has a deep, long blade scar on his back. I can't afford servants and can't worry about propriety between men and women, so I have to change his bandages myself. It is something I am used to doing anyway. At least he is not as particular as Pei Ying, who only allowed soft cloth for wiping, had to have it steamed first, and would lose his temper if the pressure was slightly too hard. The man looks thin, but the muscle lines on his arms and back are especially prominent in the candlelight. It is clearly a cool autumn day, yet not long after taking off his clothes. Fine beads of sweat appear on his forehead. Lu Huaizhen lost his thick-skinned demeanor at this moment, turning his head to the side with his ear tips, turning red, urging from time to time, Aju, is it done yet? Aju, can you hurry up a bit? Aju, if you don't finish soon, I really won't be able to sit still. Jujuju, your head. I don't know why, but in front of him my good temper completely changed. I angrily patted the back beneath my hand. Don't rush me, bear with it a bit longer. Lu Huaizhen suddenly turned his head around. Only then did I realize the distance seemed a bit too close. The hot breath he exhaled hit the tip of my nose, stirring up waves of ticklish sensations. The temperature around us suddenly rose. You turn back around. I pushed him, but couldn't budge him. The young man suddenly chuckled softly, his eyes bright as stars, the upturned corners still tinged with redness. I only felt as if clusters of fireworks were exploding before my eyes. Lu Huaizhen coughed into his fist and said, I've thought of what to teach you. I asked blankly, What? Glassmaking. He crossed his legs, pulled his clothes over to cover his knees, and said, I'll teach you to make glass. This can earn a lot of medicine money. How strange. I suddenly didn't want him to pay off the medicine debt so quickly anymore. But regarding the matter of glassmaking, I had tremendous interest. Who wouldn't love a golden goose that lays eggs and earns silver? The glass on the market nowadays is basically tribute from foreign lands, or imported goods, extremely expensive in price, practically priceless, even when available. I had heard Pei Ying brag before that he had a business selling glaze, making 10,000 taels of gold every year. Lu Huaizhen said he only had the recipe, and the actual operation would have to rely on me. I really liked this feeling of being trusted by someone. At first we failed many times, but he never spoke harshly to me, and instead told me to take it slow. We still have plenty of time. We'll be able to make it eventually. Our Aju is the most amazing little lady under the heavens. Pei Ying would never say things like that. He would only mock me for freeloading off the Pei family. I ate hot, filling meals, and thus had more strength and means. A whole courtyard of crucible clay, plus pyrophyllite and fired tile shards. Day after day of pounding and firing, Finally, one clear morning, it turned into clear, flawless glaze. A palm-sized glass cup refracted a colorful halo in the sunlight, dazzling to behold. Lu Huaizhen. Holding the glass cup, I excitedly ran into the kitchen and held it before him. Look at this. The young man had his hair tie loosely fastened behind his head. He put down the spatula and turned around, then carefully washed his hands before taking it. A token of love, then I'll accept it. With that, he tucked the glass cup into his sleeve. My almond eyes went wide. I never said anything like that. How can you slander me like this? Lu Huaizhen dampened the handkerchief with water, wrung it dry, and leaned over to wipe the dust from my face, saying unhurriedly, You've seen my body, eaten the food I made, and given me treasures. Which of these has wronged you? He emphasized the words, my body, very heavily. My cheeks flushed as I mumbled, That is not how you should put it. You didn't give yourself to me, so I won't give. The rest of my words were swallowed by his leaning motion. Lu Huaizhen lightly pecked my lips and sighed softly. Silly Aju, I told you long ago that I've already given myself to you. The moon was bright, the stars sparse, and cool breezes blew. Listening to the thumping in my chest, I thought of over 10 years of restraint and finally decided to indulge my heart this once. Lu Huaizhen. I raised my head, caressing that smooth jade-like jaw. I've been married before. Although society nowadays was open-minded, some people would still mind, and I didn't want to deceive him. If you leave now, I can pretend nothing happened. I know. Lu Huaizhen's voice was calm. You just happened to meet a terrible person. Should I hold that terrible person against you? I won't, Aju. If there is any blame, it is only that I appeared too late. As he spoke, he drew me into his embrace. My identity is not convenient to reveal to you for now, but both my parents have passed away, and I only have an elder brother at home. I've already sent him a letter, asking him to prepare the betrothal gifts to marry you. The stars by the window seemed to run into my eyes, then turned into little pearls and fell. I grabbed his sleeve, wiped my moist eyes, and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito's, It is okay, even without betrothal gifts. Tomorrow you go buy a pair of wedding candles. I'll sew the bridal veil myself. This is all a Jew wants. Nothing more. Another year, another beautiful spring day. The Fuzhou dock was filled with cargo ships coming and going. Pei Ying pulled his fox fur coat tighter around himself and got off the passenger ship with a pale face. The hardships of this journey could make anyone pampered suffer quite a bit. Fuzhou's glassware was now famous throughout the land, causing his 10,000 taels of gold to turn into bubbles. Just the other day, he heard from a porcelain merchant that Shen Lizhu seemed to have settled down in this place, so he came here himself. There was a glass pavilion in Fuzhou City, which was his destination. Pei Ying's plan was to see if he could buy that glass formula and monopolize it himself. Supposedly, it was being sold by a young commoner couple. If they refused, that was fine too. At worst, he'd use some methods. Before long, he arrived at the glass pavilion. Inside and out were full of people, even livelier than Fanlu. Suddenly, at first glance, he spotted that intimately familiar face from the crowd. The woman's face had become a bit rounder, with a pair of small dimples, her bright almond eyes looking toward his direction as she ran over. Husband, so happy to see him. In an instant, all the anger in Pei Ying's heart dissipated. Forget it, he'd just pretend he hadn't seen that divorce letter. When they got back, he'd give her more counting chips to use. He straightened his appearance and opened his arms. But he saw Shen Lizhu brush past him, like a cheerful little bird, falling directly into someone else's embrace. Why did it take you so long to come over? I sniffed the cold cedar fragrance, coming from Lu Huaizhen's body, gesturing excitedly with my hands and feet. We sold almost 1,000 taels today. Lu Huaizhen brushed the fallen leaves off my shoulder, cooperating perfectly as he said, Our Aju truly is the smartest young lady under heaven. My elder brother sent people to find me. It took some time to send them away. Just then, a voice full of anger suddenly came from behind. Shen Lizhu, look clearly. Who exactly is your husband? The man's eyes were bloodshot, as if stimulated by the scene. Like an enraged beast, he moved forward without a word to grab her. The moment I saw Pei Ying, I was stunned for quite a while. How could he appear here? But thinking it over, now that Mother's soul had returned to her homeland, I no longer needed to stay with the PA family, nor did I need to endure any more. I suppressed the cowardly instinct to dodge and said in a trembling voice, "Young Master P, please conduct yourself with dignity. The divorce papers have already been written. From now on, we part ways amicably. Now that I've remarried, whoever my husband is has nothing to do with you. Divorce." Pei Ying nearly ground his teeth to dust, his eyes blazing with fury. I never agreed. Naturally, it doesn't count. Just because of a birthday gift, you are this angry with me. Come, return home with me quickly. I can let bygones be bygones regarding what happened before. Lu Huaizhen at the side frowned slightly, as if wanting to say something. I pressed his arm and shook my head at him, indicating I could handle it myself. I am not angry with you. It is just that counting tokens is hard to earn. Getting up at night to change bandages is too cold. And I don't want to circle around you like a little dog anymore. The Pei family was never Aju's home. What kind of home makes you pay tokens to live there? You might as well go propose to my legitimate elder sister again, rather than waste your breath with useless words here. Obvious panic appeared in Pei Ying's eyes. I never thought about marrying Shen Lian instead. As he spoke, he tried to grab my sleeve. Li Zhu, listen to my explanation. Lu Huaizhen couldn't hold back anymore. He swatted away Pei Ying's reaching hand with one strike, and said with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, "Count Pei, I trust you've been well. Did you hear clearly what my wife said? She reasons with people, but I don't like to reason." As the last words left his lips, the young man's face had already taken on a severe expression, his usually gentle brows and eyes revealing a sharp edge. I froze at his words. It belatedly dawned on me that my ex-husband and current husband seemed to be acquaintances. I asked Lu Huaizhen in a low voice, "Why didn't you tell me?" The young man lowered his eyes and gently rubbed my head. "I was afraid you'd overthink it." Hearing the voice, Pei Ying irritably turned his head to look. "Go away." Only then did he clearly see Lu Huaizhen's face, his expression suddenly freezing as he blurted out the other's identity without thinking. "Prince Huaiyan, you are supposed to be already. How can you be here?" Lu Huaizhen took my hand without allowing any argument, showing off openly. Thanks to my wife's attentive care, I managed to cling to life. Wherever she is, there I am. What reason is there for husband and wife to be separated? I hadn't yet recovered from the shock of learning Lu Huaizhen's identity, and nodded subconsciously. Right, exactly. That is how it is. There are still guests waiting in the pavilion. Wife, let's go. A certain jealous someone was being particularly petty, and even deliberately patted his shoulder as we passed by, sighing. By the way, thanks for being so blind, Earl Pei. Pei Ying clenched his fists, his face alternating between pale and flushed, yet not daring to obstruct us again, only able to watch helplessly, as Lu Huaizhen and I walked away side by side, growing more distant. By evening, the smoke of human dwellings rose to the sky, igniting patches of fiery clouds. Just like any other day, we went to Fan's shop in the alley to buy osmanthus cake, and got a few extra meat pies to take home. When we're busy, we don't cook. All along the way, I had so many words stored up inside me, glancing sideways at him, but not knowing how to start. Lu Huaizhen didn't seem to be affected by Pei Ying's appearance at all, still maintaining that calm and carefree demeanor. "What are you thinking about? You look like something's weighing heavily on your mind." He pushed open the courtyard gate and turned to look at me. I pressed my lips together and sighed. How could you be the Prince of Hui? Even though I don't really understand court affairs, I've still heard of the Prince of Hui's great reputation. I heard that many high-yield grain seeds were brought to Great Yu by him. When Mother and I didn't have enough to eat, we would also go buy those round potato fruits. The new emperor and he were born of the same mother, and being over 10 years older than him, the two share a very deep bond. Willed His Majesty really let him marry a divorced woman as his princess consort. Thinking about this, I felt a bit sad. Lu Huaizhen also sighed. Can't the Prince of Hui take a wife? I don't want to be a concubine. Mother's days of living at others' mercy, treading on thin ice, were too hard to endure. I don't want to follow in her footsteps. Lu Huaizhen tapped my forehead lightly with his finger. I have no intention of taking concubines. As for my imperial brother, you don't need to worry. If he doesn't agree, I'll just go stay at a temple for a while. That works too. He rolled up his sleeves and placed the food on the plate, without a trace of airs befitting a young prince. Once we've settled the matters at Luli Pavilion these 2 days, We'll return to Yanjing and finalize your divorce. Heaven and earth may be vast, but eating comes first. I cast all my worries to the back of my mind and picked up a meat pie to devour in large bites. Since he is the one who wants to marry me, the problem should be his to solve. I needn't worry unnecessarily. After eating and drinking my fill, I carefully counted the silver I'd earned today, growing happier with each tally. Lu Huaizhen suddenly stood up and scooped me up horizontally in his arms. Your troubles are resolved. Now, it is time to resolve mine. I gazed into those dark, ambiguous eyes and only then realized that he wasn't nearly as calm as he appeared on the surface. I proactively wrapped my arms around his neck and leaned in to kiss him. The night was tender, all sounds hushed. We slept in each other's embrace, sweet dreams all night long. The next day, I opened my eyes to see the young man hunched over the low table by the bedside, writing rapidly, draped in an outer robe, candlelight illuminating his focused profile. I touched my sore and aching waist, turned over, and mumbled, "What are you writing so early in the morning? Why don't you sleep a bit more?" Lu Huaizhen grasped my ankle that had stretched toward him and gently massaged it, saying calmly, "Writing a memorial to Imperial Brother. If I don't submit it soon, he'll probably send someone to urge me. Then write quickly. When you are done, come with me to check on the shop." "Okay." He put down his pen, his expression dignified, and lowered his head to place a kiss on my forehead. "Wait for me." In a daze, I dozed off again. When I woke up, Lu Huaizhen had already finished tidying up and was hanging clothes in the courtyard. My heart felt warm, and I prayed that such good days could continue forever. However, things went against my wishes. Every day, when I went to the Luli Pavilion, I could sense the gaze fixed on me. I don't know what got into him. He even sent his attendant to deliver a letter to me. "Madam, ever since you left the Pei family, the young master has been searching for you everywhere. His leg injury flared up again, and he hasn't smiled in a long time." This was playing the sympathy card. I refused bluntly. "I am no longer any madam, nor am I a miracle doctor. He can go see a physician. Maybe not liking to smile is also a kind of illness." The attendant's expression was miserable, almost ready to kowtow to me on the spot. "I beg you, just take one look before burning it, so I can report back." In the past, he had also said a few good words on my behalf. I pressed my lips together and opened the envelope. Pei Ying asked me to remember the good things about him, saying nonsense like how Prince Y could never marry a lowly concubine-born daughter who had been through a divorce. Had Pei Ying ever been good to me? Actually, there were times. Occasionally, when he was in a good mood, he would buy me a hairpin or have the kitchen make a few extra pieces of osmanthus cake. If the elders made things difficult, he would also protect me a little. But I knew that bit of casually given kindness was no different from seeing a little dog wagging its tail on the roadside and tossing it some food. He didn't do anything terribly wrong. It is just that I didn't want to live those days of constantly yielding and going hungry anymore. I tossed the paper into the fire basin. Flames leapt up and swept away all the past. Pei Ying, who witnessed everything, gripped the fan handle tightly in his hand, his throat suddenly surging with a fishy sweetness. He came over with a stubborn look on his face and said, "You are my wife. I won't just let go like this." I pointed at the main gate of Luli Pavilion, smiling cheerfully. "Have a nice trip. I won't see you out." Good thing Lu Huaizhen has been busy with affairs lately. Otherwise, it would really be hard to deal with. Fuzhou is very close to Lingnan, and the chieftain clans of Lingnan have been rather restless lately. Who knows how many court officials they've secretly colluded with. When Great Yu is strong, they bow down in submission, but once it shows the slightest sign of weakness, they pounce like beasts to take a bite. Lu Huaizhen almost lost his life before, while investigating the chieftain's collusion. When I set out from Yanjing, I saw that cavalry unit. They had come looking for him. Latter, to facilitate his investigation, he deliberately spread the news of his own death. He even kept it from me. How terribly wicked. After 2 days passed, a troop of black-armored guards appeared neatly outside the courtyard. The planted pear tree had just borne green fruit, and buried at the roots was a jar of daughter's red wine. I looked at everything in the small courtyard, reluctant to part with this, reluctant to part with that. Lu Huaizhen was amused. "Silly Aju, it is not like we're never coming back." True, so I only took the iron hammer for striking glazed glass, along with a pretty husband I'd picked up, and boarded the carriage back to Yanjing. What? You want to divorce? The Shen residence. Minister Shen stood in the hall with fury written all over his face, his trembling finger pointing at me as he rebuked. Unfilial daughter who has disgraced the Shen family's honor. I frowned. It is not that I want to divorce, I've already divorced. Elder sister could divorce, so why can't I? Not long after I married into the Pei family back then, Shen Lian married a young master from a marquise's household. However, that young master was rotten beneath his polished exterior. He was caught red-handed in broad daylight, being intimate with a manservant in his study. Shen Lian, spoiled as she was, couldn't tolerate such an insult. Without a word, she divorced and returned to her parents' home. You. Minister Shen bristled with rage, raising his palm to discipline me. How dare you compare yourself to Yanyan? The two martial arts-trained maidservants, Lu Huaijian left behind, stepped forward to block him. Master Shen, please don't lay hands on our mistress. Legitimate mother Madame Shen also clutched her chest and cried out, This is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Quickly send someone to the Pei family to see if this matter can be reversed. I came back specifically to make this final, so how could I possibly give her a chance to reverse it? Madame Shen gritted her teeth, her face twisted with fury as she said, Fine, fine, fine. It seems you are not planning to show filial piety to your aunt. Aunt. I feigned confusion. Speaking of which, I nearly forgot to ask father and mother back then. You said you'd brew medicine and call a physician for mother. So how did she end up dying of illness? They want me to behave myself in the Pei family, yet they're unwilling to grant me any benefits. How can I not resent them? At my legitimate elder sister's birthday banquet, a cleaning woman, who had once received mother's kindness secretly, came to tell me that mother had died of illness not long after I married. The old woman wiped her tears and said, There is not much this servant could do, so I could only secretly collect her ashes and wait for the right moment to give them to Miss. I had been kept in the dark so cruelly that I didn't even get to see mother one last time. Shen Lian arrived late, sneering lightly. So little sister is actually willing to leave that wealthy nest of the Pei family. Or has young Master Pei grown tired of you for being too lowly? She still wore that kingfisher feather tiara in her hair, clearly showing it off. The maid stepped forward, blocking me, and said coldly, Speaking disrespectfully to our mistress, Miss Shen, please watch your mouth. Shen Lian's face flushed with embarrassment, and she let out a shriek, about to lunge at me to argue. Shen Lizhu, you are just a concubine-born daughter. How dare you let someone speak to me like this? I calmly stepped aside to avoid her, saying flatly, Elder sister, I advise you to maintain some dignity. Minister Shen and Madame Shen wanted to come help, but were also stopped by the maidservants. I thought happily to myself, Lu Huai's subordinates are really useful. I wonder how things are going on his end. Upon reaching Yanjing, we temporarily split into two groups. He went to find the new emperor to report for duty and submit evidence of court officials colluding with the local chieftains, while I returned to the Shen family home to stay for a few days. After getting divorced, one must return to one's maternal home with great fanfare. The courtyard, where mother and I lived, was in a secluded area. Returning to this familiar place, I couldn't help but feel a bit dazed, as if seeing before my eyes the gentle and loving smile of that woman. On the bed frame still remained the small, delicate trinkets I made in my childhood, now covered in dust. The two maidservants fetched water to wipe them clean, and soon everything looked brand new. I lay down and closed my eyes, thinking I would be sleepless all night, but suddenly heard sounds coming from outside. It was Lu Huai sneaking in. He must have been exhausted from work, with weariness filling his eyes. He skillfully slipped under the quilt and embraced me. Dear Aju, just wait for me 2 more days. Imperial brother has agreed. Once the chieftain matter is handled, he'll issue an edict to grant our marriage. Really, I happily cupped his face and kissed him. Then you better come fetch me quickly for the wedding. The man's eyes were dark and deep. He sighed softly. Though I climbed over the wall, tonight I am truly exhausted. I gave him a reproachful look. Who is asking you about that? Go to sleep already. The next morning, the warmth beside me was already gone. I wanted to teach him a lesson, so I brought the maids along to argue with them again, stuffing all the valuable ornaments from Shen Lian's room into my own chest as part of my dowry. Minister Shen cared about his reputation and refused to seek help from outsiders, afraid that others would know his household was in disorder. After all, it wasn't his stuff being lost. As a result, the next day, I took away his precious inkstone that he cherished like his life, along with many of his treasured calligraphy and paintings. Minister Shen couldn't take it anymore. Furious and menacing, he invited the clan elders of the Shen family line. "I want to remove this rebellious daughter from the family registry." Inside the ancestral hall, the clan elders stroked their beards, looking at my legitimate sister and me with eyes full of displeasure. A married daughter getting divorced. Wouldn't that affect the reputation of our Shen family women? And you actually have 2 of them. This old man has an idea. Why not send them to a nunnery to cultivate themselves, keeping company with Buddhist lamps and ancient Buddhas, so we won't need to remove them from the family registry? No need. I shook my head in refusal, since father has said so. If I go against his wishes, wouldn't that be unfilial? Minister Shen nearly choked on his breath, his lips trembling with anger. Seeing that persuasion was useless, the clan elders sighed and brought out the family registry to cross out my name. Just at that moment, the sound of gongs and drums came from outside. A young servant rushed in hurriedly, out of breath. "Master, madam, go take a look. The Huai Prince has come to our house to propose marriage." Huai Prince, propose marriage. Everyone instantly perked up, pricking up their ears to listen. Minister Shen hurriedly asked, "Did you see clearly? Is he really coming to our house?" That servant kept nodding. "Yes. The betrothal gifts have been carried in." "Good, excellent." The clan elders' faces were glowing with joy, basking in the glory. "A Shen family daughter will become a princess consort. Quickly go burn incense and inform our ancestors." I smiled faintly without speaking. A Shen family daughter, not anymore. Another clan elder asked, "Do we know which young lady is being wed?" Madame Shen pushed out the bashful-faced Shen Lian, grinning from ear to ear. "Of course it is our Lian." I remember at the previous banquet, the Huai Prince showed Lian much attention. "My daughter is beautiful as a flower, virtuous and outstanding. Only she is worthy of the princess consort position." "Me, is that so?" The Shen family only had 2 daughters. Shen Lian, already convinced it was her, looked at me smugly and said in a low voice, "Dear sister, just watch me marry in glory. How can mud in a pond ever compare to the outstanding lotus flower?" I couldn't be bothered to expose her. "I'll be watching." Everyone crowded forward, and nobody noticed that I had mixed in among them. The front courtyard. Lu Huaizhen wore a purple python-patterned robe, standing out conspicuously in the crowd. He spotted me at a glance, the corners of his mouth curving up slightly. Shen Lian approached with a coquettish, bashful expression and curtsied. "Greetings to the Huai Prince." Lu Huaizhen ignored her, unfolded the bright yellow imperial edict in his hands, and read out word by word. "Now, these 2 are a match made in heaven, specially bestowing Shen Liju of the Shen clan to marry the Huai Prince." In that moment, everyone gasped and turned to look at me in unison. I stood up, received the imperial edict, and walked alongside Lu Huaizhen. "Let's go. I am no longer a daughter of the Shen clan now." Lu Huaizhen nodded in agreement and waved his hand, ordering his subordinates to carry the betrothal gifts and my packed dowry to the prince's mansion. "Wait." Shen Lian couldn't believe it. She hurriedly grabbed Lu Huaizhen's robe. "Did you read it wrong? I am the one qualified to be the princess consort. Shen Liju is just a concubine, born daughter. What gives her the right?" Lu Huaizhen coldly shook off her hand, a cold light flashing in his eyes, his tone dropping sharply. "This prince advises you to let go. This prince does not wish to hear any more disparaging remarks about my wife." Shen Lian was intimidated by the imposing aura surrounding him, staggered back several steps, collapsed to the ground, her face ashen. In an instant, the entire Shen mansion was thrown into chaos. The timing was absolutely perfect, coming right when the clan elders were about to strike Aju's name from the family registry. 1 second, the minister Shen was still shouting, "Rebellious daughter." The next second, the Huai Prince's betrothal gifts were being carried in. Oh, right. There is another little detail I wonder if you sisters noticed. A few days ago, Aju went crazy rummaging through the Shen household for her legitimate elder sister's jewelry and Lord Shen's calligraphy and paintings to use as her dowry. This move really had me laughing my ass off. Lord Shen was so furious, He called the clan elders to remove her from the family register, not knowing this was exactly what she wanted. Strike the name, roll up the dowry, become a princess consort. Perfect ending. Aju, you are too damn smart. Fine rain on the flowers by the shore, idle wind through the trees by the water. The magpies under the eaves chirped and chattered noisily. The Prince of Hwai's residence wasn't built luxuriously, yet it was cozy and comfortable everywhere. Lu Huaijian's happiness today was written all over his face. He brought out a small wooden box and told me to open it. I stared wide-eyed in surprise. How do you have the wooden kite I made before? Naturally, someone sent it over. Lu Huaijian explained the origin. Back then, the Pei family angered the emperor, so he sent over many rare treasures, hoping I'd put in a good word for him. I only kept this one. At the time I just thought whoever could make this thing was really impressive. I thought he made it, so I admired it quite a bit. He figured it out, and later sent many more. I suddenly understood. No wonder. Every time I finished making a different mechanical object, Pei Ying would give more counting rods and find various excuses to take them away. I thought he liked the things I made, and was happy about it for quite a while. Fortunately, I no longer feel sad because of him. I thought about it and asked Lu Huaijian, do I need to pay with counting rods to stay at the prince's manor? I am not that kind of petty person. He calmly and indifferently handed over a jade token. This is the key to the treasury. Ah, Ju can spend however you want. Where the silver is, there the love is. Heaven and earth bear witness, the sun and moon can attest. A smile spread across my lips, and I decided to give him a gift in return as well. Then what do you want? Lu Huaijian's eyes lowered. Favoritism. He looked up at me, stars twinkling in his eyes. There is already one person here who thinks you are amazing. Can Aju show me more favoritism for the rest of your life? I'll write. Outside the window, the stones are warm and moss grows. May wishes come true and years be peaceful. Extra chapter in the 5th year of Yuanqi, in Great Yu. The Lingnan tribal chieftain raised an army in rebellion. The emperor was furious and punished a large number of officials who had secretly colluded with him. Those involved were either exiled or dismissed, and the entire court was cleansed. The Pei family was among them. Ever since the Pei family fell from grace, Pei Yang had been trying to restore their former glory, making money by any means necessary. He used merchant caravans to secretly transport a batch of scarce supplies to the Lingnan tribal chieftain. In the end, it was still exposed. When the prison cart for exile left the city, Lu Huaijian and I happened to be returning with our little daughter. From afar, we could see that the former noble young master was now wearing shackles and chains, looking utterly disheveled, arguing endlessly with his remarried wife. The long procession passed by, having become two parallel lines that would never intersect. The little girl lay by the carriage window and asked, "Mother, what are they doing?" I touched the little flower bud on top of her head and said, "Go ask your father." Lu Huaijian put down his scroll, his face full of helplessness. He could only resign himself to picking up the kid and coaxing her. Over these years, Lu Huaijian and I had been traveling everywhere. If it weren't for our daughter Ping'an, plus the unrest in the south, who knows when we would have returned to Yanjing? The emperor sent letters urging us every year. I fiddled with the mechanical crossbow in my hands and nodded with satisfaction. Do you think if we present this to His Majesty, he'd be willing to help us raise the kid? Of course. Lu Huaijian picked up his brush and made slight modifications to the blueprint. Would this be even better? My eyes lit up. Let's try it when we get back. Besides glass, we had created many other things. We handed them over to the court to sell, and I only collected the silver. Whether it was coincidence or not, the Pei family's business collapsed by more than half because of this. Entering the palace for an audience, the emperor on the dragon throne held Ping'an in his arms, grinning from ear to ear. Zhao Zhao is still the best, not like those stinky brats who only have their eyes on my throne. He had no daughter, so he could only envy others. The emperor didn't think highly of me at first. Until later, when I presented one beneficial item after another, the target of his disdain became Pei Ying. The emperor was unreasonable. He only felt that Pei Ying had delayed me. Otherwise, there would have been even more good things appearing. I couldn't tell him that these things wouldn't work without Lu Huaijian either. Lu Huaijian has secrets, but I don't care. After all, in this life, it is rare to stay blissfully ignorant. After reading this part, my heart feels both warm and satisfied. In the past life, being let down and schemed against. But in this life, finally living the most carefree way. Traveling mountains and waters with the one you love, having a lovely daughter, working on inventions you enjoy, and whatever you casually bring out can utterly defeat those who once looked down on you. Even the emperor became a daughter slave, playing favorites beyond reason. The whole world has your back. This feeling is truly amazing. So what if Lu Huaizhen has secrets? You understand him, he protects you, and you walk through life side by side. No need to be clear, headed to the point of harshness. No need to be calculating to the point of exhaustion. Rare confusion, with someone by your side, that is the best way to spend the rest of your life. Lu Huaizhen's perspective, I have a secret, but I didn't tell a Jew. When I was born with memories of my past life, Mother Empress and Father Emperor's relationship had already reached freezing point, and no one anticipated my arrival. To survive, I latched onto my imperial brother's coattails. But imperial brother also has his own family. Before meeting Aju, I had no family. When I fell into the river and was sinking, she pulled me up from the darkness. The young girl had an oval face, a pair of almond-shaped eyes shining brightly, yet didn't know how outstanding she was. Taking advantage of when others weren't paying attention, I brought this uncut jade home to carve and polish. Later, I learned about her past with that guy surnamed Pei, but I don't care, though I can't help feeling a bit jealous. Fortunately, in the end she still chose me. Aju is amazing. Aju looks good even when holding an iron hammer. If it weren't for that guy surnamed Pei haunting me and chasing after us, exposing my identity, Aju and I could have stayed in Fuzhou much longer. After returning to Yanjing, my imperial brother flew into a rage when he heard I wanted to marry a divorced woman. There are so many good women in the world, why must you marry her? Yes, I nodded calmly. No matter how good others are, they can't compare to even half of her. No, I do not approve. I pressed my palms together and chanted a Buddhist prayer. Amitabha, then this humble monk shall go become a monk first. Benefactor, take care. Imperial brother. You little brat. Come back. Fine, fine. If you want to marry her, then marry her. He sighed, hesitating to speak. Do you know, I had originally planned to pass the throne to you in the future. I knew, but I didn't want to be any emperor. I only wanted to have a small home with Aju, planting trees when free, growing flowers when busy. Later I heard that the guy surnamed Pei wouldn't give up and wanted to arrange a chance encounter with Aju on the street. Fortunately, I am a petty person. After thinking it over, I recalled he used to be quite fond of Aju's legitimate elder sister, so I chose to help bring them together. Later on, both Aju and I grew old with white hair. Only then did I remember to ask her, if we could do it over, would you still choose to save me? She bit into her sweet cake, smiling with 2 little dimples showing. I would. I recognized the armor you were wearing. When I secretly snuck out before to buy medicine for Mother, I encountered a drunkard who scared me, and it was someone wearing this armor who helped drive him away. I smiled in understanding. So some fates were already destined long ago. Pei Ying's perspective. I never imagined that one day I would lose Shen Lizhu. At first, I naturally didn't like her. I broke my leg, and the Shen family replaced the bride with a concubine's daughter. This was clearly an insult. Making her live on calculating beads was just something I said out of spite. But Shen Lizhu took it seriously and accepted all my bad temper. I was picky with food and could only stomach meals she personally made. The physician said my leg injury needed careful care, so she tended to me day and night without sleep. No matter how fierce I was, she never got angry, like a soft ball of cotton. At some point, I had grown accustomed to her presence. Later, I wondered countless times, if I hadn't lavishly sent that crown to Shenlian that day, would she not have left? The reason I sent the crown to Shenlian was merely to show off, to make her regret marrying the wrong person, with no other intention. But Shen Lizhu left the PA family without looking back. She took nothing with her when she left. I thought she was just upset, so I decided to let things cool down. After all, in this capital city of Yanjing, she only had me to rely on. Minister Shen wouldn't stand up for her, and her birth mother was just a lowly concubine. It wasn't until I saw the divorce letter I had written with my own hand that I vaguely realized she must have truly been disappointed. But in the days after Shen Lizhu left, I felt like I was missing a pair of hands and feet. I couldn't adjust to anything. I never imagined that when I saw her again, she had already married and become a wife, married to none other than the famous Prince Y. I was filled with regret and resentment, but there was no longer any trace of me in her eyes. I numbed myself with alcohol day and night. Once, drunk and disoriented, I thought I saw her again, but when I opened my eyes, lying beside me was the sobbing Shenlian. This youthful romance ultimately forged a marriage of resentment. Shenlian had a bad temper, and so did I. Neither of us would yield to the other. Later, we were both exiled, blaming each other throughout the long journey. Born into a family of wealth and privilege, I finally learned how unbearable it was to go hungry. The journey was long, and my leg injury flared up constantly. This time, there was no one left to apply medicine for me. In the 6th year of Yuanqi, I died of illness during exile and was hastily buried in the wilderness. In a daze, my soul drifted into the air, and I finally saw Shen Lizhu again. She lifted her head and softly called out, "Husband." Lu Huaizhen asked her, "Do you want braised bear ribs or sauced pork knuckle tomorrow?" "Both. I want both." The laughter of old acquaintances faded into the distance while I rested eternally in my homeland. Finally, I want to have a good talk about this story. Let me start with the detail that bothers me the most. Pei Ying took the wooden kite Aju made to curry favor with the Y Prince. Aju thought Pei Ying had finally recognized the little things she made. Thought he gave her extra calculating chips each time because he liked them, and was even happy for a long time. But what was the truth? Pei Ying just treated her hard work as a tool to cozy up to the powerful, even pretending he made it himself. What he cared about was never Aju as a person, nor her talent, but what those things could get him in return. Ironically, the one who was truly moved by these mechanisms was Lu Huaizhen, someone who had never even met Aju, yet just from a wooden kite alone concluded that the person who created this thing is quite remarkable. You see, some people toss pearls away like pebbles, while others can recognize the luster of pearls even from thousands of miles away. But what truly touched me most in this story was actually Pei Ying's extra chapter. To be honest, after reading his perspective, I didn't feel vindicated, but rather felt very empty. It wasn't until he was starving on his way to exile that he first understood being hungry is actually this unbearable. But Azu had been eating insufficiently by his side for several whole years. It wasn't until his leg injury flared up with no one to care for him that he remembered Azu had stayed awake, day and night changing his bandages. But what was the reward he gave her at that time? It was, "I've seen plenty of women like you." It wasn't until after his death, when his soul floated above and saw Aju happily asking Lu Huaizhen, "Do you want braised pork ribs or sauced pork elbow tomorrow?" that he truly realized he had completely lost her. The laughter of old friends fades into the distance, while I sleep eternally in my homeland. This line is too cruel. What is cruel isn't that Aju is heartless, but that Pei Ying finally understood everything, yet it was too late for anything. He didn't have happiness taken from him. He pushed happiness out the door with his own hands, one counting rod at a time. All right, sisters, today's story ends here with you all. I am Faye, an ordinary college student, who decided after reading this story to never settle again. If you were also moved by a certain moment, come tell me in the comments. Was it that line, "The Pei family is too expensive, so Aju went to live at another house"? Or, "Where the money is, that is where the love is"? Or perhaps that understated line, "Aju looks good holding an iron hammer too"? See you in the next good story.